Welcome back to the Painting Coach, and this week there still be dragons on the channel as we paint Karazai The Scarred. Okay, first thing as ever, don't get intimidated by the kit, let's work through it step by step. So we've primed it with Wraithbone, and the first thing we need to do is take some Pallid Witch Flesh and dry brush this over all of those lighter areas just to give them a little bit of a colder look to offset against the bright warm oranges and reds we'll do later. Next up, we're going to shade all of those lighter areas using Aggaros Dunes. Now the first thing is to mix this with contrast medium. We're going to go 10 parts contrast medium with 1 part Aggaros Dunes. And we want to paint this over all of those areas that we're going to paint lighter later on. So we've got the wing membrane, we've got the chest area and a little bit of the underbelly as well. And don't forget the head. When that first layer of Aggaros Dunes is dry, take the same mix and just add this over those deepest recessed areas and along the wing membranes where you've got all that cracking on the membrane itself. Just add it in there to get some nice definition. Let that Aggaros Dunes fully dry and then go back in with the dry brush of Pallid Witch Flesh. Now we're looking for all those areas that are going to be lighter, but we're also looking for where we're going to start transitioning from the light colour into that orange. And make sure we pick that up with the dry brush as well. So we've got the wings, the chest, as well as the head. Alright, let's get on to the orange and we'll start the fun. So we're using Gryph Hound Orange Contrast Paint. We're going to mix this 3 parts contrast medium to 1 part contrast paint. And what we're looking to do is apply this all over those orange areas of the model, leaving about a scales difference where we have the transition between the lighter colour and the orange. Once we've got that done, what we will do is we will then paint that scale with the same mix of Gryph Hound Orange. We're then going to clean our brush off in clean water, wipe it on a tissue, and then we're going to feather it into the lighter colour next to it. So we start to get a nice blend. Once that first coat of Gryph Hound Orange is dry, we're going to go and add pure Gryph Hound Orange over this in a very similar style to the way we did the first coat. So what we're looking to do is paint all of the Gryph Hound Orange areas apart from 1 or 2 scales from where you have that blend with the lighter and the orange colour. We're then going to do exactly the same thing where we're going to clean the brush off with water, make sure it's damp not wet, and then we're just going to feather it into that lighter Gryph Hound Orange, starting to establish that transition. Once that orange is dry, we're going to transition to the red colour along the back of all that musculature, and we're going to use Blood Angels Red contrast paint for this. We're going to do this exactly the same way as the last coat of Gryph Hound Orange. So we're just going to apply it to the model, and then we're going to clean our brush and blend it into that Gryph Hound Orange. We're also going to use this across all the spines on the back of the wing to get that red colour established. Don't worry about the back of the wing membranes, just concentrate on the spines for now. When that Blood Angels Red is dry, we're going to go to the darker red, and that's going to be Flesh Tearers Red contrast paint. And this is for those darkest areas. So if you look down the legs, the bottom of the legs towards the feet is a much darker red. Similarly with the hands and the horns. There's several areas we want to focus this, a little bit on the shoulders as well. Just check the box art if you're not sure. But again, we're doing this in exactly the same technique that we've done all of the other contrast paint. That's the majority of the contrast paint elements done for now, so let's move on to more traditional paint. Let's get the back of that wing membrane done, and we're going to do this using Mephiston Red. Now because we're painting over a light area, we're going to need 2 coats. We shouldn't need more than that, but just make sure your paint is thin and you don't build up too much residue on those wings. When that Mephiston Red is dry, we're going to take some Nuln Oil to shade this. Now you can use really thin down contrast paint if you want, but I find Nuln Oil is the right consistency, and we're going to paint this over all of those wing membranes, just taking care not to have it pool because we don't want it to run down underneath and spoil the lighter colour membrane, and also we don't want it to be too dark on the top. When that Nuln Oil is dry, it's time to highlight. We're going to use a dry brush for this, and the first colour is Evil Sunz Scarlet. So we want to just get this on the brush and add it over those wing membranes. We also want to use this over some of that Blood Angels Red contrast paint, as that's going to start to give the skin a much nicer leathery effect, leaving the dark colour in those recesses. We're going to continue that highlighting using a dry brush, and the colours we're going to use are Wild Rider Red and Troll Slayer Orange. Now I'm not actually washing my brush in between layers here, so it's going to give a much more blended effect. So you can see on the left I'm using the Wild Rider Red, and on the right I'm using that Troll Slayer Orange, and these are going to combine to give you that nice bright effect you see on the box art. For the spines themselves, we're going to very lightly highlight those with some Fire Dragon Bright. Now again, we're using a dry brushing motion, so just take your time and work this over there. And also where you've got some of those orangey parts of the flesh around those areas close to the transition, we can also use the Fire Dragon Bright to dry brush there and ease that transition slightly. This is a really important element when it comes to getting those nice blends without actually doing any wet blending. So I thought I'd show you another example here on the inside, which shows how we help taper that transition really nicely. The last highlight we're going to do is with some Kindle Flame, which is a dry paint and is very pastely, so don't use too much as it can potentially make these areas look washed out. But what we're looking to do is just target the most raised areas where you've got the most amount of detail. And we'll also use it on the tail as well, where we can use it to help transition in that middle bit, so we go from the dark orange to the lighter orange to the darker orange again. One simple area to get finished next is all that little bit of hair that we've got along the model. So the colour we're going to use for this is Shyish Purple. Now take your time when you come to the transition between the flesh and the hair, but this will apply and give a nice highlight recess shade all at once. We don't need to spend too much time on it. You can highlight again if you want, but for me it looks good as it is. Don't forget we've got it on the legs, on the belly and also on the face. The next part we want to do are all the scales and all the claws on the model. So to do this, we're going to base them with Khorne Red. Now these are really prominent, so we want to make sure they look good. We're going to take maybe 2 coats to get that base down. And don't forget we've got plates along the back of the spine, we've got claws on the wings, the hands, the feet, and we've also got plates on the arms and the legs. Like I said, they're really prominent, so take your time with this step. We now want to shade all of those areas that we've just painted with Khorne Red, and the colour we're going to use for that is Black Templar contrast paint. Now this is quite powerful, so we'll cut it down with 5 parts contrast medium, 1 part Black Templar, and we're going to add 2 coats. So make sure you cover everything you've already done, all the plates, all the claws and the teeth. Once we've added that second coat of Black Templar and we're happy that it's completely dry, we're going to start highlighting. So the first colour is going to be Khorne Red. And what we're looking to do firstly is catch any raised edges using the side of the brush. And then what we're looking to do is we're looking to just draw some vertical lines from about halfway to the bottom. And we're doing this quite quick. Make sure you've got a good point on your brush and leave some gaps and spaces. If they blend together, it's okay at this stage. But we're starting to build up a bit of a chit-in effect. To complete that effect, we're going to Evil Sunz Scarlet and doing exactly the same thing, except we're covering off slightly lesser area and we're starting a little bit lower to the bottom. So again, make sure you've got a good point on your brush, draw those vertical lines, move quickly and just work your way all over the model. Don't forget the plates on the front, don't forget to highlight the claws and the teeth as well. We're coming towards the end of Karazai now, so the first thing we need to do is work on all of that scarring. So the first thing is to take a dry brush of Pallid witch flesh and just work this gently over the area where all that scarring is. Next up, we're going to take straight Pallid witch flesh from the palette and paint this into all the recesses of that scarring. Now we've got those scars filled with Pallid witch flesh, as well as some lighter areas around those scars, we can start to fill them in. So the first colour we're going to use is Volupous Pink contrast paint, and we're going to paint this directly into the recesses of all those scars. So take your time, try not to spill it too much, and keep it in their recesses, especially around the face and on some of that chit-in on the head. Finally, to add that distressed look to the scarring, we're just going to take a little bit of Magos Purple and paint this all around the area. Now the trick with this is to start off away from the scar and paint towards it, so you're depositing the majority of the paint near or around the scar. It doesn't matter if you go into the gap too much because it's a lighter colour, so it's not going to affect it, but it will just give that nice pink distressed look. Now is a great time to paint the eyes, so make sure that they're a light colour such as Pallid witch flesh or white. Now the eye that's got the scar running through it is a little glazed over, so we're going to put some Ethermatic blue here, and on the good eye we're going to use a Yandan yellow contrast paint. As we come to the end of the model, we need to complete the sharp end of the tail next. So what we'll do is firstly take some Trollslayer orange and paint this all over the area, leaving the darker colour in the recess. And then we'll take some Fire Dragon Bright and use this to edge highlight using the side of the brush on those sharpest areas. The last part before we base the model and get a look at him on the turntable is just to paint some of that patterning on the inside of the wing membrane. So we're going to start off with some Dryad Bark and literally just sketch out some triangles to start with and then fill them in. We're going to do this all along the wing membrane. If you're not sure how many or how little you need to do, just check the box art. To add some depth back into this area, we're just going to wash them with Nuln Oil. Now, similar to the top of the membrane, you don't want too much, you just want to work it into those recesses of the cracked membrane. And the last thing we need to do is just take some Gorthor Brown, and we're going to use this to dry brush over the brown areas on the internal membrane. Take your time with this, you don't want it to spill over the edges, but just work it on gently to get a subtle highlight. And there we have it, Karazai The Scarred is done, ready for the tabletop. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, leave a comment down below, and maybe check out some of my other content. I'll see you next time.